One of the things that was discussed heavily in the 2003-2005 period was the prospect that goods movement related jobs would help to offset these manufacturing losses. And why is this important? Well, if we look overall at the job mix in Southern California, what we see is manufacturing jobs have been clearly shown to be that ticket to the middle class. So that was paying high-quality jobs. You didn't necessarily need a four-year degree. If you were willing to work hard, you could get a good wage, and you were productively employed. A lot of those manufacturing jobs just aren't coming back, and so to the extent that we have a locally grown industry that can similarly pick up some of that slack to provide good quality jobs with a career ladder that people can grow over time. That was the promise that we all worked on in the earlier part of this decade. For myself, when I was with Governor Schwarzenegger's cabinet, I chaired the Goods Movement Action Plan for the state, and part of the bond issue in Prop 1C, where we got $3 billion for goods movement. And this was one of the key themes, that goods movement and the importance to Southern California was really key to growing our economy. But what we can see is the reality is that those 500,000 jobs that we've lost have not been made up, at least not yet, from goods movement. We've only got about a little over 40,000 of job growth in that same amount of time. So about somewhere between 8 and 10% of the job losses. So the question is to our panel, can this growth in goods movement and goods movement related jobs help sustain a middle class in Southern California? And I will be asking each of the panelists at the end of our discussion this question relative to their view on this key question. But right now, what we'll do is we'll go through and in a kind of from a big picture to narrowing down. We'll start with Jack, who will give us his insights into what's going on currently in the near-term prospects of employment and growth in goods movement transportation. We'll next hear from Tom O'Brien, who has been very involved in looking at the whole issue of workforce development and skills development for goods movement. We'll then hear from Peter Greenwald, who will talk about some of the technology opportunities that we have to add to our workforce in new areas. And then finally we'll hear from Elizabeth Warren, who will relate some specific anecdotes. And I wouldn't call it statistical at this point, but she has spent a lot of effort talking to her members and others about their experience. What are they going to do in terms of their prospects for moving forward in this economy and for hiring? So with that, let me turn it over to Jack Kaiser. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Barry, and good morning, everybody. The recession has been officially declared over, but most people I run into don't believe it. What you have is a very strange recovery because people don't recognize the magnitude of this past recession. The government just released third quarter GDP numbers this morning. It was a 2% growth, and people say, well, that's not enough to really start creating good jobs. What we are seeing is around Southern California that we are still losing jobs year to year. The only exception is Orange County, and Orange County is in a recovery, thanks in no small part to Disneyland. So when we leave today, tip your hat to Mickey, please. But the idea is that this has been really a really rough downturn for us in Southern California. I went and looked at what was the peak employment in each of the counties in Southern California. It wasn't uniform. Some peaked as far back as 2006. But overall, through the end of 2009, we have lost over 800,000 jobs in Southern California. And that is very, very distressing. We know that the unemployment rates are quite high. LA County is at 12.6%, Orange County around 9.9%. And you have about 1.1 million people unemployed in this region. And a distressing statistic is that in the state, and we make up a good chunk of the state, 31% of the people that are unemployed have been unemployed 26 weeks or more. So the question is, how are they going to get back into this workforce? What type of skills are they going to need? This is very, very critical. Another thing that we have to think about is our population is still growing in Southern California. You have people saying, well, people are going to start to leave the region because the economy is struggling, but where are they going to go? Are they going to go to Nevada? Are they going to go to Arizona? Both those states are also struggling. And Barry did allude to there are other people out there. There's something out there called non-employer firms. And these are firms that they're not in the underground economy. They have a tax ID code. And the data is reported, but with a great time lag. The latest numbers that we have just for Los Angeles County, 2008, you had 800,000 non-employer firms. And these would be people that would be putting demands on the transportation system. This is something we have to think about. So where is the growth coming right now? Well, it's coming from tourism, especially international tourism. And we've got to remember that tourists will use public transit, especially if they're coming from overseas. They are used to using public transit to get around. So, and that is a very interesting dimension there. Motion picture and television production. And when they go out on location, they have the trucks and all the other equipment on the roadways. And then, of course, international trade, which has bounced back very, very quickly, much more rapidly than anybody thought. 9 months at the two local ports, container traffic up 20.6% to 10.4 million TEUs. And then there's another aspect to international trade that doesn't get that much in the way of headlines. It's international air freight through both Los Angeles International and Ontario airports, and that has bounced back. That's up 31.5%. And these are small, high-value goods. And then the other thing that's going to be driving the recovery is infrastructure projects, and that's something that people don't really think about. Terminal expansions at the ports, the Exposition Boulevard Light Rail Line, the Gold Line extension. So this is very, very critical. We are doing an economic growth strategy for all of Southern California at the Southern California Association of Governments, and we're working with a variety of consultants. And so we've asked a question. When do you think your specific area will recover all the jobs lost in this past downturn? And the answers are a little bit disturbing. Under the best scenario in Los Angeles and the Riverside San Bernardino area, it'll be 2016. Orange County, a little bit in better shape, 2014. But you have a tremendous number of hurdles out there. The business environment in the state of California. We've heard a little bit about it in the election rhetoric, but not nearly as enough of what we can do to grow jobs. You do have business flight. There are some people that do poo-poo the issue of business flight. But the Southern California Leadership Council got data from Dun & Bradstreet that showed we have lost around 1,200 firms to other states, and a big number of those were manufacturing and wholesaling. It's the blue-collar jobs. And one thing that people don't recognize is that manufacturing and wholesaling does generate taxable sales. In some cases, more significant taxable sales volume than your traditional retail activities. Then we have problems in real estate, both residential and non-residential. And then, of course, in 2014, we have a biggie. It's the opening of the expansion of the Panama Canal. And we have to go back to, say, the early 1990s. We were struggling. You had the Northridge earthquake, but what helped us get out of the ditch in the early 1990s? It was international trade. That's when it really came on stage as a major part of our economy. And so we have to look ahead and say, the expanded canal is going to be a real challenge for us. What can we do to beat the canal and retain our fair share of international trade activity? So the next couple of years, recovery, it's going to be slow. Don't get discouraged. But we are going to have to be more strategic and more aggressive in our thinking. Thank you.